We keep getting you lost with the mic. Good morning. Welcome to Keeping It Real with Mary and Lionel. It's the 16th of August, 2021. We're hoping that you had a safe weekend and the Monday morning has brought you a cherished week to look forward to. Um, Today, we're not seeing Lionel. As we would say, he's missing in action, MIA. So there's going on without Lionel this morning since he is missing in action. Today we're going to have a special guest by the name of Mr. Anthony Alleyne, the principal of Lesterborn Secondary School, one of the newer schools in Barbados. Before we go on, of course, we know that um, he will give us a little journey about himself as we proceed this morning. What I would like to remind the folks out there is we have had a recording of 23 positive cases. That's 10 males and 13 females. And in isolation is 101. Now, we know that this is not looking too good. It's been reported, of course, that they're doing quite a lot of checks between family clusters as well as bar clusters. The question is, are people keeping to the protocols of COVID-19, which has been set by the government? We're asking those folks to, you know, realize the importance of sanitizing, realize the importance of also wearing your mask and social distancing. We also received a public notice this morning, or was that yesterday? Um, yeah, Ministry of Health and Wellness has advised that Barbados Drug Service at Warren's Tower 2 Warrens in Michael will be closed today, Monday the 16th, and Tuesday, tomorrow, August 17th. That's the Barbados Drug Service closed for these 2 days, Monday, August 16th, and Tuesday, August 17th. We want to state that the ministry has apologized for any inconvenience to disclosure. So persons obviously would have to make arrangement for alternative dates. We also want to say congrats to the West Indies team for winning their first test match against Pakistan yesterday. Finished quite early, and we had two tail enders, as they're called, Kima Roach and Jaden Seals at the end. One wicket to go, and of course, it was a pulsating game with the last over coming down to at least a requirement of 6 runs. Wonderful game that it was. Kima Roach hit 2 fours to finish off the game, winning the first test. Unfortunately, the first timer, the 19-year-old who capped 5 wickets for 55 runs, has been reprimanded for breaching the ICC Code of Conduct. No, that's not the way to start off, Jaden Seals. We were so happy and so proud of you to note how things were going and the difficulties a lot of these players were having. I, for one, would say that it was very hot, but I'm not going to get into that. So Jaden Seals has been reprimanded for breaching level 1 of the ICC Code of Conduct during the opening day of the first test against Pakistan in Kingston. So the question is it that he was overly excited? He didn't expect to get that wicket with Hazan Ali. A lot of these things play on these players, play on the players. So we want to make sure that folks realize, of course, that that's not the way in which to behave because cricket is known as a gentleman's game. So if that's the case, remember that you're a gentleman and you're representing the West Indies. So Jaden, we appreciate all that you've done, but just remember to keep yourself in check. And it is notable that you did plead guilty um, to the reprimand because I think it was Richie Richardson that um, imposed the sanction. Of course, the charge was leveled by the on-field umpires, which would be Mr. Gregory Brathwaite, Joel Wilson, Nigel Duguid, and the TV umpire Leslie Reefer. They have to realize, of course, that the mics are on the stumps so that they can hear everything. I think before you couldn't hear a lot of things, but now because of these technology coming in, you have to be wary of all of these new things that are taking place during these games. Of course, we have to remember those in Haiti. The death toll from the quake in Haiti, which took place last week, is just over 700 persons. This is so sad. Um, I don't think this country is, I don't know, it's the difficulty of them with one thing after the next. It tells us that, you know, I don't want to say they're not lucky, but they've had so many things happen to them. And some people may say the wrong thing about because of the voodoo and that kind of stuff. It's a cultural thing for them. But we want to express our sympathy, um, trying to grapple with this natural hazard as well as the social and economic challenges over the years, and also for losing their president last month because he was assassinated. So we know that it's quite taxing on what these folks are going through at this time. We know that there are a lot of rescue persons going out there trying to help to find persons, young children. We're not sure how many of those individuals would have been children. I don't think they've recorded that. But the thing about it is that that's not anything you would wish for anyone there. And we continue to pray for the people of Haiti and ask that you keep them in your prayers. And we hope that these things will change for the soon, not for the better, because um, right now I think they're trying to grapple with the death of the president. The investigation into the assassination is still ongoing. They have some persons that were, I lost track of the amount of persons that they were actually, um, they found to be responsible for his assassination. So we really and truly need to pray because I think there was also a system on the way, and can't remember if it was Grace or Fred, one of those that were going to be passed. And so that would now add to all that's been happening there in Haiti. So we ask the folks out there to continue to pray for the people of Haiti. So without further ado, as I mentioned earlier this morning, we have a handsome debonair joining us by the name of Mr. Anthony Alleyne. For those persons who may not know Mr. Anthony Alleyne, he's principal of the Lesterborn Secondary School. However, we're going to take a little trek with him because it's interesting to know that he has many hats, but he also would have been, as we say, from humble beginnings. When we know someone with humble beginnings to come to this point in their life, that tells you that even though he's at a pinnacle stage of his life, there were some challenges. And a lot of people out there don't think that you can make it. You have to set goals for yourself. Everybody, as we would say, was not born with a silver spoon in their mouth. But at least if we make efforts, we we have dreams, we have aspirations, we can move ahead and move forward. So let's bring on Mr. Anthony Alleyne, and he's going to take us on a little journey about himself to today.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning. How are
How are you?
you?
I'm pretty good. And yourself?
Oh, I'm not doing too bad. A bit stuffy from some people burning stuff on the area. And as far as I know, you're not supposed to be burning anything without permission.
That is
So,
true.
yeah, my sinuses are a little affected, but I'm still here bright and sparkly
Lovely,
this
lovely.
morning. How has it been? How was your weekend?
Pretty good actually. It was one of the first do nothing weekends I've had in a while.
Wow,
Yep.
congratulations on that.
So
I
I totally
know.
sat down and just relax for a little bit. So Monday's looking good so far.
Oh, beautiful, beautiful. Well, I'm sure you're expected to do some more relaxation coming up.
Yeah, well, there's lots of work to be done, so I enjoy it while I get it.
Yes, yes. We were talking earlier about, um, well, we spoke about Jaden Seals' magnificent take yesterday for the series, for the first test match against Pakistan, where he
Mhm.
got 5 wickets, one of the
That's right.
youngest. I think he broke a record as well. 5 for 55 runs. Magnificent.
Mhm.
And throughout that, unfortunately, he was reprimanded for his conduct.
Okay. I
Um,
didn't. I just read the headlines this morning.
yes. So, we have to remember that these young players, even though they're with stalwarts in the team, they have to realize that the pitch has microphones. And even if
Yes.
you want to say, stump your toe, do something else,
Yeah,
you
we have to
know?
be aware wherever we are nowadays, apparently.
Yes,
Def-
definitely.
Yes.
And we also were mentioning that we have 23 cases.
Yes, I saw that this morning as well.
Yes, we have
I,
23
I
cases and
hope it is
101 in
just a
isolation.
blip. I said I hope it's just a little blip and we go back down from
Well,
today.
we've been catching up though. We our numbers increase day by day. It's about doing the right thing, and I think that's where some of the young folks aren't realizing the importance of that.
Yes.
Um, we also want to send our prayers to our brothers and sisters in Haiti.
Mm,
And we know that for some reason, Haiti is not a lucky island, always getting hit by natural disasters. And it's not
yes.
helping their social and economic aspect at all after now just losing their president from being assassinated. All those things we, we, we have to take into retrospect. And I think for us in Barbados, the people say that what God is something in Barbados. I can't even remember what it
They
is,
say
but
God is a Beijing. That is one of
God,
our quotes.
yeah, God is a virgin.
Oh
But
boy.
I don't think it's about that. I don't know if they're on the wrong side of the water or they're just sitting on these plates because I lost track of how many times they had earthquakes.
Yeah, they've
Um,
had it. And monitoring that weather system heading there as well too. I can't imagine one
the,
thing after the next like
the
that.
next, yeah, that's a
Yeah.
double whammy. That's definitely a double whammy. So let's hear a little bit about Anthony Alleyne. And one of the things we really enjoyed is that he went to one of the oldest primary schools in
Yes.
Barbados. So let's start from there. As you would say in your cakey pants. I don't want to say running barefoot, but for people to know a little bit about Anthony Alleyne, start us off with your youthful days.
Oh geez, okay. Well, we're going not too far back. Since we're talking youthful. I think it is it's best to say whenever I speak to persons, I always say that I am Balan born and bred. I hold that as a very strong pride of place.
Hmm.
Growing up in Bayland as a youngster, going to Bay Primary School, head, heart, and hands,
That's
and
right.
being influenced by many wonderful teachers at that school in
Hmm.
my formative years. I would have
Hmm.
grown up what we call over the wall from the geriatric hospital, Pantry Place, Luke Avenue.
Uh-huh.
But obviously, there's still many, many friends down there still. We still connect every once in a while.
Yes.
But the Bayline journey was really one through Bay Primary, coming up through school. Teachers, they know anyone who went to Bay Primary in my generation would know of Miss McDonald, Miss Laria, Mr. Ford, Mr. Moore, Miss Miller, Miss Messiah. It can call a lot of other names that
Hmm. Mr. Ford was
made
my
us see that.
teacher.
Yeah.
Mr. Ford was my class teacher, and he
Okay.
shared the classroom with Mrs. Laria, the late Mrs. Laria.
Yes. Yes.
Yes,
Those were my two as well,
yes.
actually. Right
So
up
we're
to class.
young.
Horribly. Yeah, but we do have fond memories, and I think they were instructive in embedding in me that desire to do a little bit more. Because that's probably why I came into education, honestly. I initially wanted to be an engineer. I went on to Harrison College, and
Hmm.
initially I was thinking about being an engineer, but then when university called it, I moved straight into teaching. And I've never looked back. Education has always been a passion for me, working with young people and trying to see how I can help persons as much as possible, whether it be gaining knowledge or just simple motivation or inspiration or any other way that I can do. So I really need to credit the Bayline fully, be a
Hmm.
primary, of course, and
Hmm.
then also my home church, St. Paul Anglican Church, where my
Woo!
mother made sure that I attended Sunday school even after a
Mhm.
little break. I don't know how many people will know, but it was very active in the youth group in my early years between 15 and 16.
Yes.
And through working with that church, persons who guided me and mentored me, and the names are too many to call right now, to be honest.
Hmm.
But that solid upbringing helped me to weather many storms over the years. And no matter how much things may go off keel a little bit, as it does for all of us,
Hmm.
that created a type of anchor. And I would really hope that more of our young people nowadays will have that type of anchor somewhere within their lives that they could always come back to.
Yes, yes. Now, speaking of your rearing aspect in an area that is what most persons consider not creme de la creme, and that is the bare land.
Okay.
And we want to point out to individuals that it doesn't matter where you come from, it's how you make yourself as you grow. Now, give us a scenario or an experience that you would have had while going to school at Bear Primary that was memorable to you.
There are so many. I can speak for the ones that build responsibilities. Many of the
Hmm.
teachers there try to give students responsibility, and I
Hmm.
think that helped me a lot when they realized that I had some type of potential, even before I realized it,
Uh-huh,
and they
uh-huh.
would ask me to do various things from day to day. So that helped. Many
Right.
of us would know of PE teacher Mr. Norville,
Oh,
the
Lord.
stalwart of the school, and
Uh-huh.
I had very little athletic ability. I'll tell the truth. This wasn't my thing. But despite that, he was still very encouraging. Even after recently, a few years ago, I saw him. And we had a very nice conversation.
Hmm.
Uh, and it's basically the socialization. You mentioned the Bayline and the idea of a stigma or feeling about a community. But
Hmm. Hmm.
for me, that community ingrained some values in me with respect to interpersonal interaction, respecting people for who they are, no matter which part of life they may fall, and being part of something bigger, which is something I try to tell my students at school each and every day. Yes, you're one person, but we can't be selfish. We're part of something bigger, whether it be a bigger workplace, a bigger school, or a bigger community. And I think the Bayline is renowned for that in the area of sports and entertainment. Many persons have passed through it. We know we have our only living national hero. He's from the Bayline. You mentioned Bay Primary is one of the oldest schools. There are a lot of older persons as well who look
Hmm.
to
Hmm.
me as a 5, 6, 7 year old, sometimes going from Joan Arundel, their nursery, to Miss Fitz,
Ah!
God bless her soul, uh, then moving on to Bay Primary. So you always felt a level of support,
Hmm.
regardless of what the perception may have been other places. If you
Hmm.
were there or you lived in it, there was always this genuine feeling of community support as you came up.
Yes,
And
yes,
that really, really, really is what I take with me up to this day,
yes.
wherever I go.
And I think too, growing up in that environment, within the community itself, you could not walk and not speak to somebody, or you couldn't
Oh,
pass anybody. I mean, those days when you look back, I mean, it's reminiscent of what we know in
mm,
terms of I know walking from one house to the other. And I'm saying to myself, oh Lord, you gotta say good morning, you gotta say good evening.
Yes, you
And if
must.
you don't say, they're gonna pick up the phone and say, Miss Downs, your granddaughter just passed me and it
Mm.
speak. You
Or you
know,
get the call saying that your son is up the road further than he should be.
correct. So the community life is still important in rearing of children.
It
And I
is.
know for you, as a teacher and as a principal, those things you would try to ingrain in your students. Now,
Yes.
we're leaving the primary and we're going to, again, an old school. Now, I don't even call it a school, I call it a college. Because when
Uh,
you hit up in there, that's a different techie all the
yeah,
way. It's totally a different mindset. And
yeah.
I think it was mostly known for sciences, and this is
Mhm.
Harrison's College.
Yes.
And why I say that, a lot of people don't expect, and I'm not butting anybody, I always keep it real on the show. A lot of people don't expect people from the Bayland or the Ivy or the Orleans, where else? Deacons, to make it out of these areas. Mind you,
Mm.
some people have still remained in these areas. As you said earlier, there's a lot of stigmatizing.
Yeah.
Now, I've had a Harrisonian, I think he's about 2021, from my street, and he went to be a primary too, so I'm sure you're going to do so and hit your chest.
That's right.
I feel very proud about it. Now, tell us what it was like integrating from Bay Primary into Harrison's College in that
All right.
time.
Well, let me go first with what you would have mentioned. Where once upon a time, because it's not like that. No, I think the playing field is pretty much more level now than it would have been
But
20, 30, or
yes.
4 years ago.
Hmm.
And realizing that persons, no matter where they're coming from, they have a natural level of intelligence. And once
Yes.
they're given that opportunity, they're able to make it. And the key
Hmm.
word there is opportunity. And I
Ah.
try to tell my teachers that at school often. If there are two things we have to give students, whatever level they're at, wherever they come from, hope and
Hmm.
opportunity. And hopefully the rest will take care of itself.
Hmm.
In terms of the Harrison College transition, that was made easy by being in the particular year group I was in. I was fortunate to be paired with a group of, they call them fellas, but a year group that was not selfish at all. And within 2 years of being at Harrison College, we bonded, and like I think any other year group collectively that I've seen in the time that I've been there. And
Hmm.
though we came from different backgrounds, different parents, different socio-economic statuses, we all enjoy football. We all enjoy
Yes.
living in the canteen,
Hmm.
and we all enjoy that level of socialization. So even though the work was harder, the pressure was a little bit more, and the expectations increased, I was lucky. I must say, I was lucky to have been around a group of persons who are doing well in their own fields right now. To
Hmm.
have that sharing and down to earthness. And I think in that year there were a lot of persons who that came from places like St. Stephen's and Deacons and from town and things like that. So
Hmm.
we really had an appreciation for the mix, and we
Yes.
respected one another for our differences. The other thing I'll say too, I know you mentioned districts and communities. I
Hmm.
used to walk to Harrison College every
Hmm.
morning from the Bayland. So some days it would go through St. Lawrence and Jessamy or Dandolian. Other days it would cut
Yes.
through St. Gabriel's when it was open. And
Hmm.
there's a in King William Street, which is just off Nelson Street. There's an area some days it would walk through to get to
Hmm.
Harrison College. As a youngster, when you go to certain areas, you get a little afraid. I'll be
Yes.
honest. And I always remember the gentleman to this day, still see him and walking through. He showed me one day, he just hailed me. He said, "College boy." He still calls me college boy. He said, I glad to see you walking through here again. School, you ain't got to worry about nothing. Let's be a
Hmm.
term. You don't worry about
Hmm.
nothing.
Hmm.
And that also, when they talk about the comfort, oftentimes we label everybody or every place
Yes.
based on a
Yes.
statistic or a situation. But even in the worst of places that we may think, there are
Hmm.
some extremely good people with some extremely good hearts. And if you take a little time to chat with them or open
Hmm.
up to them, we learn
Yes.
a lot and we get a little
Hmm.
better for it.
Hmm. Hmm. Yes, I agree with that because one of our previous guests, the Honorable Kurt Humphrey, he was
Mm-hmm.
explaining his experience from living in the Pine,
Fine.
and
Mm-hmm.
he originally apparently came from the Ivy, so
Yes.
he was all mixed up there. But he also had some friends, quote unquote, that might not have been of the good nature, but they
Mm-hmm.
always looked out for him and told him,
Yep.
you got to hit the books. So you have to respect everyone. It doesn't matter who they
Yes.
are. It could be a vagrant on the road. It could be, an elderly lady who might be cursing you or something. No, you do have those, and it's just that their
Yeah.
mental state. They might say
Yeah.
the wrong thing, not realizing, and you know for yourself that they really need help.
Mhm.
So not that you're ignoring them, but you don't want to instigate or antagonize them further.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff. So listening to what you're saying speaks volume to a lot of individuals who have experienced that. Now, for your teaching aspect, I think I read somewhere that you were into a lot of IT for about 7 years. I'm
Yes.
correct?
That was the
Yeah.
yes.
So you wanted to do engineering, you said?
Initially.
Yeah. So engineering, IT was as close
Yeah.
as you could get to engineering.
It was funny. When I first left Harrison College, I wanted to do engineering. Didn't go to UE St. Augustine at the point in time. I took a year
Mm-hmm.
off, but then I started UWK at Phil. And
Mm-hmm.
around that time, my younger brother and my cousins, they were also preparing for getting ready to be age 11 going to combination. So he started giving them some lessons at home.
Oh,
The board, yeah,
lessons.
lessons, my little cousins. And I think amidst of working with them, some encouragement from my godmother, who was the principal of a primary school,
Mm-hmm.
and I just felt the need to move into education. I really can't explain it. So halfway through, I started computer science, and I determined that I'm going to finish at this degree, but I'm definitely going to get into teaching. And
Mm-hmm.
then everything just rolled from there. So I did started to teach mathematics and information technology. I became the IT coordinator at the school after a few years.
Mm-hmm.
That helped me to push some initiatives that in Griffith that I'm happy to say did well for the school. Then I became the deputy principal in 2013, and
Mm-hmm.
then I went on to become principal in 2015. So it really has
Beautiful.
been a journey
Mm-hmm.
filled with ups and downs. Don't get me wrong, lots of experiences, lessons, and most definitely some mistakes. But
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'm happy to say that I'm at the point where I've learned from them, and I'm hoping to share with others over the next couple of years so they can also do well themselves.
Beautiful, beautiful. And I love the fact that you've been a teacher for over 20 years.
Yes.
And though mind you're a principal, you're still a teacher to heart.
Very much so.
So
Yes.
it shows that you will grow and continue to groom others out there that, are within your, you know, company.
Yeah,
Um,
and I think that's what we're supposed to do. Just quickly, there's a guy that used to run a shop in the Bay, and actually got a Grafton branch. Most people may know the branches,
mhm,
and he would never let me pass on the evening coming home from primary school. Never. Whenever my
mm,
mom sent me to the shop, he would tell me calculate the change. And as simple as that was, him
yeah.
looking up to me and paying the interest at age 5, 6, 7, 8. I didn't realize that level of mentorship, even though I didn't know
Hmm.
the word back then,
That's
and
right.
what that did for me. And I
Hmm.
would always tell persons, you can always give to others. It doesn't have to be money. You can give them time. You can give them a kind word. You can give them some
Yes.
advice,
Yes.
and you can always impact others without realizing it. And
That's
that's what I
correct.
try to.
And that's so true. And it doesn't matter. But I know for a fact my daughter goes through that within this community and
Mm.
my little son because it's an experience that as they get old, as you said, they will be reminiscent of the fact that, if they go anywhere else, you're not going to get it the same way. So
Yes.
at least if they go somewhere and they recognize, oh, they will go, little Haley or little Nat, how are
Mhm.
you? When they go by well, family friend, they have a little shop. They're always giving them little snacks,
Yeah.
you know, it's like a little treat for them. So my little one now, he tells you, Mommy, I have to go by Auntie Margaret for gummies. So he
And you
knows,
remember those things.
yes, and he knows that's a treat, because you go to the shop to buy things. But
Mhm.
because these people within the community love the children, they're always giving them little treats and stuff like
Yes.
that. Although you have to tell them you don't take things from strangers at the
Yes.
same
Correct.
time, you know. But I love the I don't want to say village life, but I call it the village life because I've always said to
Yes.
people,
It's
you
sweet.
can't go next door in the heights, and I lived in the heights. I ask for some sugar or
Boy.
salt or some foil because those people are going to be, when you see a blind just shaking and trembling,
Mm.
you're not going to be doing anything. But people at you say, that buddy, oh, they're crazy calling at my house, So, and people talk about living in communities where they don't have to lock the doors and the windows open.
Yes.
We still have it out here. And I know
Mm.
for some persons that live in another area say to themselves, oh, I miss those days because right now I gotta keep the window closed and turn on the fan or the AC.
Yeah.
Whereas, for some of us, we can just leave it all open and just enjoy nature as it is. That basically that's how I see it. Now,
Yes.
Toastmaster, tell us a bit about that.
All right. One of the best things in the world. Let me be
Uh-huh.
biased and say it is. And I will say up front, this is a plug to anybody who's interested. It's a wonderful thing to join. I joined it in around 2010. I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to get associated with the club. It's really about public speaking and leadership. It
Mm-hmm.
provides opportunity for you to sharpen your public speaking skills while still teaching you some of the technical aspects of speech writing and public speaking, and also to associate with others who are trying to do the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
It was between 2010 and 2013. I guess it did pretty well. I would have won 4 local competitions within the
Mm-hmm.
Toastmasters family. I went 2 at the regional level, and then went on to represent the Caribbean at the World Championship of Public Speaking at the semi-final level. Didn't make it to the finals, but it was a
Mm-hmm.
wonderful experience.
Mm-hmm.
I think though what it has done for me, it has increased my listening rather than my speaking.
Mm-hmm.
So I listen a lot more. And it has also helped me to be able to better communicate with persons, whether they're
Mm.
3 or 4 years old, like my children at home, or
Right.
whether they're 30, 40, 50, 60. And
Yeah.
we speak about community,
Right.
but the other thing that's missing a lot is communication, where we
Ah.
listen to hear what is going on with other persons rather than just listening to make a response. And that
Yeah.
is across all levels, organizations, businesses, private, public sector, et cetera, et cetera. And in the same way that we would do well to bring back some of the key values and aspects of community life, I think a lot of us would do well to improve our communication in our personal, private, and professional life.
That is fantastic. Wonderfully said. And I wonder if I should join that too. So I can
Right.
learn a little bit more about leadership and how to write
Yeah.
and that kind of stuff.
Yes.
And mm, I think I'm doing pretty good though.
I think so too.
Now, it says there you've been in that for 7 years, but also we talk about trade unions. And
Yes.
we have a little hiccup when it comes to trade
Oh
unions.
boy.
When you get involved in that, would that have been before you became a principal, or was it during your transition in university? How did you become
That,
involved in trade unionism?
yes, I was an executive member and then deputy general secretary of the Barbados Union of Teachers between 2011, I think it was, and 2013.
Mm-hmm.
So that was before he became a deputy principal and principal, before he moved into administration.
Right.
Again, one of the driving forces for that was recognizing that, well, first of all, teachers aren't given enough credit. Let me say that up front.
Mm-hmm.
Let me
I
just
haven't gotten there yet, Anthony. I haven't gotten there yet.
okay.
Go ahead.
And I will sing it from the mountaintop. I think teachers and educators and educational leaders are doing a phenomenal job generally, but even more so in this current climate that we're in. So
Mm-hmm.
for me, it was to learn a little bit more
Mm-hmm.
about the machinations of the education system,
Mm-hmm.
to educate myself, and also to help in terms of my ability to analyze and to give suggestions for how to make things better. So the time there was well spent. I learned a lot from it. I was able to share a lot as well.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, not going too deep, but I know the trade union movement is going through a difficult time right now. Uh,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Across the board. And I would just say to persons that the trade union movement is not about one person, it is about solidarity forever.
Mm-hmm.
That is the rallying call. And therefore, workers, whether young or old, experienced or inexperienced, knowledgeable or no learning, we all in this together, whether it be in
That's
your own company, your own
mm-hmm.
school, or the broad level within our own country.
Now being a unionist, not just trade union. there are a lot of negatives and positives that comes along with it. Um,
Mhm.
I'm speaking from my experience, and I guess all are the same in terms
Mhm.
of being with the Barbados Workers Union or
Mhm.
teacher union or whatever. And when you talk about unity, when you talk about working for the people, you want to go in with a vision. And is it for the betterment of the individual? Why I say that, there are some instances where you might belong to a union, and in that union, you have your principle, you have your mottos, etc. But some people who are in it don't see it the same way.
Mhm.
Why are they in it?
Well,
It causes a
that
lot of friction. I'm getting to that
yes.
point because I want to hit something else pertaining to that.
All right. What I'll say that goes for any organization. That's the first thing.
Hmm.
Trade union, voluntary organization, even as hard as it may be, some churches too. It goes for virtually any organization where there will always be some persons who may have an agenda that's not aligned to the collective agenda. You
Hmm.
mentioned vision and mission and purpose. Those are key because as long as an organization holds to those, they should be more or less on the right track. I think with the trade union movement, though, because our circumstances have changed so much from the 60s, 70s, and 80s, where we were fighting for particular things, the
Hmm.
dynamic has changed. Globalization has kicked in, technology has taken over, the generational divide has widened, and the types of issues and dynamics that are
Hmm.
facing workers and the trade union movement and the country as a whole now are different to what obtained back then. And I believe that many of us, unions and schools and education, may not have evolved enough or quickly enough to properly adapt to these changes at the macro level so they can better give service, counsel, and advice to the members at the micro level.
Yeah, because a lot of people, if you go and approach a new teacher, and I'm talking on both sides now, a
Yes.
new employee or a new teacher, and you're telling them that, the first thing is, when we going to fight for you, every, excuse me, everybody's supposed to get it. But
Mhm.
you got to pay $23 a month to be part of this
Mhm.
whole thing. And young people, if it's not eyelashes or nails, $23 could go far
Or
on weave. So how would you get the majority of those individuals understanding the movement now? Because right now, in a lot of these unions, you
Mhm.
don't have the younger folks attached as much.
No.
I find you're getting the old ones are still there, but they're phasing out because they're either dying or whatever the case may be, or
Yep.
leaving it. And you got a case going on right now, which we won't go into deep about. I'm somewhat at a loss because if that person is removing themselves from something like that, that means they're no longer the president. However, that catchment, because you would have been you would be under the teachers, but that catchment is really for public service, if I'm correct.
Yeah.
Um, they a lot of those persons within that union are old, and I
Yeah.
don't think they're attracting the young people, and they're not setting a very good example. Mind you,
Mhm.
that's that. You also have the same problem with the teachers union,
Mhm.
where again you want them to be part of it. It's a passion. You're fighting for the same things, but a lot of these young people aren't interested in it. I mean,
Mhm.
if I have to go back to Frank Worrell's or Frank Worrell days, it would say that they were fighting for a purpose. Um,
Yes.
and I can keep it real again.
Feel free.
How many Caucasian teachers do we have in the public service?
All right. Let
That
me
hard.
confirm this quickly. I know you didn't mention the wicket would be so rough this morning, but thanks.
That's a six.
Yeah, it is. All right. So you're touching on about two different things. Let me rewind a little bit, then come forward to the last one when you speak about young
Mm-hmm.
persons. And I
Mm-hmm.
think we're missing three key things in organizations and in unions:
Mm-hmm.
education, association, and results. By education, I mean letting younger persons know the history of the association, what it has achieved, and what it
Mm,
can do for them, both in terms of their knowledge and their growth in their respective jobs, not just representation when things go bad, but
Mm-hmm.
growing within the profession, wherever it may be, public or private sector. The
Mm-hmm.
association is where people enjoy being together with one another. We spoke about the community earlier, and it
Yes.
is that association that kept us coming out on evenings and talking.
Yes.
Organizations should do the same thing beyond just the core mandate. People still want to be able to associate and relate with one another and
Mm-hmm.
feel a sense of belonging to something bigger, not just paying dues and getting a receipt, but belonging to something different. And the
Mm-hmm.
last thing I think is necessary, and this goes for organizations and the trade union, results.
Yes.
If I am part of something but I'm not seeing results, or the things that I'm seeing all the time go contrary to what I expected, or
Yes.
they do not match with what you say, then I'm
Mm-hmm.
not going to be interested. And we have a
Correct.
younger generation, Marie, that they're quick to realize when you're talking nonsense, they're quick to
Mm-hmm.
realize when you're wasting time, and they're quick to
Mm-hmm.
leave you. Very
That's
much so.
right. Very
So
true.
any organization, whether it be trade union or voluntary or whatever, needs to recognize that about the generations, and it really has widened a lot. It's not just old and young anymore. There are
Mm-hmm.
lots, two or three others in between there. And
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
if you're focused on growth and continuity, education, good association, and results. With regards to the different classes or brackets who are part of certain professions, that is a reality. That is a reality.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I'm equipped enough to speak to the stratification of the social classes, how the finances are distributed across the country, etc. But we are generally a middle class country in the main. It may
Mm.
have played in because of recent economic circumstances or
Mm-hmm.
context, but generally speaking, that is where we're tapped on our public service. Generally speaking, is populated with persons from the middle class bracket over the years. But it will become strained a bit, as you mentioned, with young people who are more willing to stay at home and do their own thing
Yeah.
than to
Yeah.
work for someone and not be happy. They're going to stay home
Yeah.
or they're going to leave.
Yeah.
So, again, how do we prepare ourselves for that, both in teaching and other areas of the public service? But those are questions for a much longer debate at another time.
I know. and,
Good.
and and the reason behind that is I there's always some sort of disparity. And I realized that from going to school, both at primary and secondary level. And I don't think the word stigmatism would be wise, but it's just that as you get older and you have your own children, you're still seeing this
Mhm.
disparity and separation. When kids play together, they don't look at color, they
No,
just play. But then society teaches these children the difference between black and white. And I don't understand that. And I was telling my daughter, my husband the other day, we were watching a race on the Olympics. I can't remember whose race it was. But this white guy went and hugged two black Kenyans. I think it was the 1500 meter. And I sat back and I said, but can you imagine? That man didn't know that there was two black people? I'm just saying.
didn't matter to him. I think what just make one last point. I think when you speak about a younger generation,
Hmm.
the the natural separation is dissolving a lot more. Younger persons are less interested in some of the things that we held as things that separated us.
Yeah.
Uh,
Okay.
I mentioned globalization, humanity. If you look at the recent riots in the States, a lot of persons who were involved in those last year were younger persons
So,
of all
yes.
colors, all financial backgrounds, and everything. So
Yes.
younger persons are more concerned with ideas and where they're going next
Hmm.
than they are about quarreling or fighting about issues that may have a historical entrenched background, but really doesn't do
Hmm.
anything for them at the point in time. And again, we who are at this age level, young, we have to see how we can tap into that and inspire it to lead the organizations and the country forward.
Okay. Okay. Well, that was a touches topic there for Mr. Ali. Now, I think he didn't think about it. But I went on that because, from my experience, for those out there who wouldn't know, although you were a teacher at Dighton, you would have been my brother's teacher.
Yes,
And
Alemayu.
yeah,
That's right.
we grew up in a multicultural family.
Right.
And I remembered on occasion when both of us would have played with a whole set of different colors and stuff like that. But as they got older, that society bracket started to play a factor. And when I came to Barbados and I went to school, well, at Bay Primary, um, a word, I don't even know if it's translated yet from English to French, which was very hard to understand, was honky. And
Mm.
I thought it was very, very difficult. And as you got older, a lot of people said, "Oh, your complexion, you get it anywhere." I went to Florence Spring Memorial Secondary School, and it was the same story. Oh, you get, and I have to say to anybody who there who's watching or listening, that's not the case. It doesn't matter where you're from or what color you are. You have to go through the same one, two, three, four steps like everybody else. The important thing that I learned though was to get an education.
Yes.
That's the main thing. Now, speaking about education, I want to bring forward something that I think we crossed paths on it, and it really affected me. I don't want to say mentally, emotionally, because Dighton and Lestervard are newer schools. Dighton Griffith Secondary would have been a new school on its own, whereas Lestervard would be a combined school. I think it was originally a part thereof with St.
St.
Leonard's
Leonard's Girl.
Girls
Yes.
and Roebuck Secondary School, if I'm
Not
correct.
necessarily Roe, but St. Leonard's Girl primarily. Some did
Okay,
come in from the village afterwards.
right. And I know there's a lot of good things going on at Leicester Vaughan. You would have
Indeed.
brought whatever experience you had from Dighton and brought it into Leicester Vaughan. I'm not saying you didn't. I know you did because you would see and you have done your research and your history and say, okay, well, if that didn't work, let's try it this way. Leicester Vaughan produced one of Barbados's highly recognized runners. They said he's called His Excellency Ryan Brathwaite or hurdler, and he would have been trained under Mr. Babb. I think he's the physical education slash coach at
Yes,
the
it is.
school, which means that you have a very deep aspect of activities within the school, not just track and athletics, but you have other amenities to the school at Leicester Vaughan. Something that came up, and I want folks out there to realize again, it goes back to the primaries and the Harrisons and the Queens, etc. It doesn't matter where you go to school. Some children come from an environment that is very different to others. As you said, we are a middle class country. And people have to realize that you're rearing children, you're trying to teach them, not trying, you are teaching them responsibility, you're trying to give them discipline, you're trying to create a goal setting for them, things like that. And it is sometimes the environment that the children come from that create that negative aspect to a school. Some people are hiding behind the fact that the same prominent schools have those same issues. I think Lord School had something similar recently with a fight or something like that. What I'm getting at is um, you alluded to a point where I saw this thing and I said, and I didn't even remember that you were the principal. I was so upset. And I said, but why would people, use social media for such rubbish? Pick up the phone, speak to somebody at the school, let them know without having to
Mhm.
castrate the school because of the school. How do you feel having to represent knowing that your children are good students?
Yeah.
Notably, we all know that they all will have personal problems, but they're good students regardless. You're not always going to get an A student, you're going to get a B and a C. But how do you feel when people, I call it castrate because there's no need for people to do it through social media?
Yeah. All right. Now this is something I feel very passionate about. First of
Mm-hmm,
all, there will always be negatives. So we have to start by accepting that.
mm-hmm,
There are persons who will rejoice in sharing salacious information rather
mm-hmm,
than that which is supportive. And
mm-hmm,
the reality is, within our system, the item that catches the attention because it shows something negative spreads a
mm-hmm,
lot quicker than that which is positive. So I accept that.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing I would say, you're right. We have some fantastic children, not just at Leicester Vaughan, but across all Barbados. But we
Mm-hmm.
also know that sometimes the one or two negatives have a much louder volume
Yes.
than some of the positives.
Mm-hmm.
With respect to managing it without the school, there are three things that I try to say all the time. Number one, for every negative, let's bring 10 positive things. Simple.
Mm-hmm.
So it
Mm-hmm.
may be a negative post, that's fine, but we're going to show you 10 positive things to back it up.
Right.
And we're going to persevere with it. So no matter how rough a day may be or a week may be, even if one or two persons may find themselves in trouble,
Mm-hmm.
the other 880 students are going to rally and support and lift the school up.
Yes.
The other thing, again, the community grounding is that from the time you walk through Leicester Vaughan or any other school's gates, you are a part of a community and you're
Mm-hmm.
responsible for maintaining the image, strength, and unity of
Ah.
that community. And that is as simple as it. You do not have to be a scholar, you do not have to be the fastest athlete, but you
Uh-huh.
have to realize that it is not just you by yourself doing whatever you feel. That cannot fly, and we hold to that 100%. So
Mm-hmm.
it is first of all counteracting the obvious negative, which will come by doing as
Mm-hmm.
much positive, embedding in everybody from students right up that they are part of a bigger picture, and
Yes.
therefore everything they do should contribute towards uplifting the
Mm-hmm.
institution so they then benefit. And last but not least, it takes a village. I believe in this 100%. As one principal or as one teacher in the classroom, we cannot do it all. Even as one school, we cannot do it all. So I firmly believe and practice inclusive community involvement 100%.
Mm-hmm.
Parents must be involved from day one. Their
Yes.
words must matter, their ideas must mean something, and we must always let them know what is happening.
Yes.
Students must have a voice, they must. And they must
Mm-hmm.
also be given the opportunities to share that voice. And where they don't know how to use it, teach them how to use it as much as possible.
Yes.
The expectation should be rooted in what is best for them. So it would be wonderful if we could say we got 90% CSE passes. But if we
Mm-hmm.
can say that 100% of my children leave school feeling good and confident with themselves, I'm a happy man.
Right.
And lastly, the surrounding community, the neighbors, the houses, two and three gaps down, the businesses, the buses that students catch, the vans, the bus drivers, all of those are part and parcel of the Leicester Vaughan story. And I believe should be part and parcel of any other school story. And
Mm-hmm.
that is the way that we try to tackle some of the negative that we find. That is the way that we give children a sense of belonging, a sense of hope, and a sense of opportunity that they may be able to do something with themselves at some point. And then that is so we guard ourselves against any other negative influences from outside. It takes a lot of work, it takes a lot of hands, it takes a lot of talking, it takes a lot of energy and sweat.
Mm-hmm.
But I think if we're going to make sure we do not lose any more future generations, all of us in leadership have to make that necessary effort.
And well, let me call it a last note. What about the mental health of these students over the past year? For those who would have been preparing themselves for CXC, and not just CXC, but the
Yeah.
whole school in terms, because I know I as a parent, I personally, you mentioned about teachers being phenomenal. I don't know if there's another word to use for teachers. I think I have to give them 20 hats. And
Agreed.
if I could give them 20 spas, three, what you call them again,
Staycations,
staycations,
yes, please.
I would. Um, I, as the president of our alma mater, I,
Mm,
I, I thought it not wise, but gracious and full of gratitude to give the class four teachers gifts
yeah,
in
nice.
recognition of their hard work over the year and a half, because
Hmm.
not forgetting that school closed off from March of 2020. Even though students went back in September, Bay Primary was one of the few schools that had school every day. And
Yeah.
a lot of parents who had the kids that were key and Luther Thorns or wherever else, they were like, they go to school every day? Yes!
Yes.
8:30 to 2 p.m. in the afternoon. Well, why you gonna find somebody to stay with my child because I got online class? That was a mental drain for teachers as
Agreed.
well as students. Then you
Agreed.
were hearing horrific stories. Some children didn't even have electricity.
That's right.
Some children didn't even have the utensils to use for the class. Some children didn't even had food to eat for the week and no electricity and no equipment to use.
Mhm.
And you have parents out there that were like, but that's all right. Teachers went out of their way. Some of them even took food, tried to, because I think some of the tablet amounts might have gone short, and some students would have had to wait until the ministry was able to give. Then you had corporate Barbados making donations to help offset who were not getting. I mean, teachers had gripe, and the children's mental state of mind was array. And I have to commend them for doing the 11 plus.
Agreed.
What is your take on that in terms of your students with the COVID aspect, and how did they manage? I'm sure some had a lot of problems.
I don't think we can understate the impact on our young people the last 18 or so months. We speak about the educational deficits because of not being able to learn enough. We can speak about the home environment where parents would have lost jobs and
Mm-hmm.
therefore what they were accustomed to they could not get, the struggles with the technology in the early stages, etc. So there was a real impact. I know that most schools, I can say my school for sure, placed heavy emphasis at the beginning on making sure our children were okay first. We know we're going to lose some of the teaching time. We know that we may not finish everything we need to finish. But I told my teachers from day one, let us just make sure our children are okay. We will deal with the rest afterwards. That goes
Mm-hmm.
for those preparing for CXC or those coming through the system. There
Mm-hmm.
would have been a number of resources to assist. Everybody may not have been able to make use of it. I will say too that the real impact of COVID in the last 18 months, we are now going to see going into next school year because it's still here with us. And so
Yes.
the emergency plan that we had, which turned into a plan to mitigate what is going on, will now seem to be the norm, at least for another year, it seems, depending upon how things go. I'm not sure, but at least for the remainder of this year. And it has been hard on everyone. It really has. And I need to commend parents who try their best, straddling work and home, never use a
Mm-hmm.
computer or never use Google Meet. Combinatrix children. I said this to the class 4 group last week. Combinatrix children did this exam in the middle of a pandemic, a
Yes.
volcano, and a hurricane.
Mm-hmm.
Any class 4 child needs a massive round of applause for what they
Yeah.
went through once they still
Mm-hmm.
got through it. And as you
Mm-hmm.
correctly said, all teachers, even if they did not meet the bar that was expected of them, they tried their absolute hardest to get there and they tried to do their best for the children. So it will be a work in progress. And as schools and leaders and teachers, I think we're going to have to use the next school year to move forward while still mitigating for the last year. Quite really has been rough. It really has been.
As I said, between yourself and all of the other principals, teachers, as well as the students, I really and truly put my heart out to you folks,
It,
because it was not an easy year.
no.
Um, a lot of the children would have lost, as you said, teaching time, and a lot of catching up would have had to been done, especially for those who are a little slower. And patience, patience. I think y'all had. I don't know what to call it. Y'all had patience. I can tell you, my daughter would have had her thing on so I could hear what's happening in the class
Mm,
and stuff like that. And the teachers had problems with some students too, who didn't
yes.
realize the necessity for having it online. You had to have school setting out, um, uh, what's the word I'm looking for? Like guides of how to use the class setting.
Hmm.
I think there were stories with people passing in the camera and the
Yeah.
towels, and it, it,
We all learned a lot. That's the
and
best way
I,
to put it. We
yeah,
all learned a lot.
I just think it was a hard, hard year for all.
Indeed.
And the parents, you can't forget the parents. As you said, there were parents who just didn't
Yes.
even know how to use Google Meet. They were frustrated as well.
Hmm.
And I think from primary to secondary, they don't have a lot of guide. I don't think they have many guidance counselors. I could be wrong for primary schools. I think you mostly get them in secondary school.
Secondary, yeah.
Yeah, I think they really need guidance counselors for the primary school to help them also with the transition, more so now than anything else, because yes, they would have sat the exam, but they had a trial before sitting it. They were frustrated, they were anxious,
Mhm,
you know,
mhm.
and I don't know. I all I can say, I commend you all, teachers,
Thank you.
phenomenally so, phenomenally fantastic. The PH to the F.
Thank you. We give them a clap.
So, on a note, what does your future look like in the next 10 years? Because
Oh
you
boy.
got 20 plus. So I'm
Oh,
sure we're
gee.
going to be hearing a lot more about Mr. Alleyne at Leicester Vaughan. What's your
Oh boy.
future and advice to young people coming up now throughout this pandemic
All right. So
onward?
future ways with Lesavon, I'm fortunate to be at a wonderful school with wonderful staff and students with lots of potential. So it would just be to work with them to make the school even better than it has already been. That is essentially it. And I think all the pieces are there in place. And I want to salute all the teachers at the school who have embraced me, shared with me, and led me along the way thus far. Uh, I have children at home as well, so I've spent some time over the last 2 years focusing on them and to make sure that they come up as good as they can be in this environment. In terms of young persons and advice, the world has changed. And I think any young person now between the age of 11 and 14, 15 has to first accept that the world has changed. And the world that we knew definitely wasn't there. And the world that they were coming up in 2 years ago will not be there. So they have to be able to retool themselves, build what they call the soft skills, meaning communication, problem solving, critical thinking, creativity, and be ready and willing to step out into the world or the country and make
Mm-hmm.
something of themselves, regardless of what anyone thinks about them, regardless of what anyone thinks about where they come from, and regardless of any cold water anyone may want to pour on their ideas. We have some wonderful young people in this country. And as I
Yes.
said, they just need that little leg up. And I would encourage any young person, keep your head on. Don't mind where you come from. Don't mind how things have been, just keep moving forward towards what you would like to have happen. And someday
Am-
it will, or as much of it as possible will.
Amen. I love that. I love that. And as a guest to our show, we also want to recognize you as one of our stars who will be on our page as a recognition for your contributions to the
Oh,
service in education in Barbados. We
thank you.
appreciate all that you have done and pray that God continues to be your guiding light in whatever future endeavors you may have. A note just came in, a public notice. Offices of the Urban Development Commission and the Rural Development Commission will be closed from today. The Ministry of Health and Wellness has directed that the offices be
Oh,
closed for 1 week after confirmation of a positive COVID
positive.
19 case. So,
Yeah.
folks, note that the Urban Development Commission and Rural Development Commission are closed from today, 1 week from today. Folks, we always want to remind you out there, put your mask on,
Mm.
wash your hands, sanitize, social distance. These things we're asking you to do every day. If we can get this done, we can move forward. They're asking people to go and get the vaccine. If you have a personal choice against it, that is your point of view. We're not telling you run out there and get it because it's there. If you have some apprehension, speak with your doctor. Do not be misguided by all the misinformation and the ill truths surrounded by these vaccines. We are pleading and asking folks to keep positive. It's a positive note. Our Prime Minister, the Ministry of Health and Wellness are asking people to do the right thing and make the right choices if we want to move forward. And always remember, pick up the phone, call a friend, tell them you love them, find out how they're doing. And we want to thank our guest, Mr. Anthony Alleyne, for joining us this morning. We pray and hope that you have a beautiful week. Continue to stay safe. And remember, keeping it real with Marie and Lionel.